Dead Air, by Killian Flynn. Genre, mystery, detective suspense. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Silas Drake was awake, not from insomnia, but from instinct. Even after 5 years off the force, the habits never died. He still woke before sirens, still watched windows before curtains moved, and he still left his burner phone on the kitchen counter, face down, ringer off. Except that night it buzzed. 3 seconds, then nothing. He stared at it. He hadn't given this number to anyone. Not Anna, not the landlord, not even the gas company. He picked it up. No missed calls, no voicemail indicator. But when he pressed play on the recording app he sometimes used to replay police scanner audio, there it was, embedded like a shadow, a message, broken by static, clipped by panic. Drake, I don't know who else to call. They said I have until sunrise. You solved Crowley. You can solve this. Please. Then silence. No name, no number, no signal trace, just dead air. Silas stared at the screen, jaw tight. Crowley. Nobody had said that name to him in almost a decade. The Crowley case wasn't just his final success. It was the one that broke him. 7 victims, each strangled, each mouth stuffed with outdated radio transistors. It ended with a shootout in a closed-down station on the outskirts of Nevada. Only one man walked out, Silas Drake, and he never talked about what he found there. He replayed the audio again, slowed it, analyzed the tone, the cadence. Young, mid to late 20s, voice shaking, but calm enough to know who she was calling. She knew his name, and she mentioned Crowley. That case had been buried so deep, it barely existed in public records. So how the hell did she find him? He ran a trace on the audio file. Nothing. No metadata. No creation timestamp. It was like it had appeared in his phone, or had always been there. He sat back, lit a cigarette he didn't want, stared at the ceiling fan above his rusting one-bedroom rental. The fan didn't move, but something else did. The thought, heavy and inevitable, the kind that made your chest feel smaller. She's dead already. He didn't know how he knew. He just did. By noon the next day, it was confirmed. The body was found in Colorado. A woman unidentified, locked inside a radio station that hadn't broadcasted in over 2 years. Hands bound, mouth open, a small tape recorder beside her. The last track? A broadcast that cut off mid-sentence. The dispatcher said, "She sounded like she was on air when she died." Drake drove 13 hours through desert and pine just to see it for himself. He hadn't told anyone he was coming, didn't flash a badge, didn't have one anymore, but the uniform at the perimeter recognized him anyway. Drake? Hell? Thought you went ghost. I did. What brings you to Station 9? Drake lit another cigarette, narrowed his eyes. Dead air. Station 9 sat on a hill that smelled like rust and forgotten wires. Half the windows were boarded. The roof antenna looked like it hadn't moved in decades, but the place buzzed. Not electronically, something deeper, like old secrets still vibrating inside the walls. Inside, the air was stale, dust thick enough to make your footsteps visible. They found the body in Studio A, slumped over the desk, one hand on the broadcast switch, headphones snapped in half, face frozen in a mix of shock and sadness. She looked peaceful, which scared Drake more than anything. He examined the recorder, standard tape deck, same model Crowley used. The cassette inside had been rewound, but it only played 31 seconds. Her voice clear, calm, live. And if you're still listening, then you know the air's not dead yet. I don't know your name. I only know what I found. The sound isn't coming from the transmitter. It's coming from static, then nothing. Drake replayed it again and again. He felt something he hadn't in years. Not fear, not grief, momentum, the kind that lived in blood and memory. That told him she found something and someone killed her for it. Back in the car, he opened his old case files. Crowley, radio signals, 7 bodies, 1 survivor. All the files had been shredded when he retired, but Drake had memorized every detail. Because Crowley had whispered something before he bled out on the studio floor. It's still broadcasting. Now someone else was whispering the same thing. From miles away, from beyond death. The air wasn't dead. Not yet. And Drake knew what came next. He had to find the original broadcast. The signal that never stopped. The one not coming from a tower, but from something older, deeper, something underneath all of them. By the time Drake left the station, the wind had shifted. It whistled between broken antenna wires and rattled the siding. It wasn't cold, but it sounded like winter. He got in the car and turned the radio on. Just static, until it wasn't. A voice, faint, behind the noise. The switch is still live, even after death. Then it cut, back to snow. The display showed no frequency. Just... He shut it off, lit another cigarette, didn't smoke it, just watched the smoke curl in the stale air. The station wasn't haunted. It was active. And whoever had killed the girl, whoever sent that message, had known exactly what they were doing. He checked the coroner's report at the sheriff's office. Time of death, between 3 and 4 a.m. No sign of struggle, no ligature marks, no drugs. Her pupils were dilated. Her blood pressure had spiked, but she died of a complete neurological collapse. The kind you don't see unless someone's body shuts down from the inside out. No signs of trauma, no visible cause, just off. The sheriff, a wiry man named Haynes, leaned over the folder. "Never seen anything like it," he said. Drake nodded. "Mind if I keep this?" Haynes paused. "You still with the Bureau?" Drake looked him in the eye. "I'm not with anyone." Haynes studied him for a moment, then slid the file across. "Hell, no one else wants it anyway." Back at the motel, Drake laid everything out on the bed. Old photos, Crowley's map, the victim, still no name, next to the old broadcast schematics from the original 7. 7 stations Crowley had used. All local, all defunct, all tied to radio frequencies that weren't in circulation anymore. Drake had memorized them: 89.3, 91.7, 95.6, 99.1, 103.5, 106.7, 111.0. But the killer had used something different this time, something untraceable. He reopened the voice recording from his phone, slowed it, listened for interference patterns. There, right behind her last breath, was a digital signature. Not a sound, a frequency, 222.1 megahertz. That wasn't a legal broadcast range. It was military, encrypted, reserved for closed-band communications. He looked up the frequencies registry. Nothing public, but he had contacts, people who still owed him favors. He called one, kept it short. "What's on 222.1? A long pause. Then, "You're not supposed to know that." "I don't. That's why I'm asking." The voice on the line said, "That frequency's dead." Drake leaned back. "No, it's broadcasting." Another pause. Then, quieter. "Walk away, Silas. You don't want to know who's running that band now." Click. Drake hung up, stared at the wall. A picture on the motel's cheap wallpaper caught his eye. A framed photo of a mountain range. But the image behind the glass was shifting. He blinked. It was normal again. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he wasn't. He turned the radio back on, manually dialed to 222.1. Static. Then, "Silas Drake, you should have stayed buried." His breath caught. No modulation distortion. Live signal. He shut it off. Heart racing. Then his phone vibrated. A message. No number. Just, "I saw you at the station. You heard it too. Meet me." A location ping appeared. Midnight. Coordinates led to a closed-down transmitter shack an hour north. He went. Didn't take a gun. Didn't bring backup. He didn't trust either anymore. The shack was crumbling. Chains around the door. He cut them. Went inside. A single desk. Dust. And an old radio. Turned on. Dial set to 222.1. A voice crackled through. Not hers. Not Crowley's. A new one. Young. Male. But unsure. You're not crazy. It's real. The broadcast never stopped. You just stopped tuning in. Drake stood still. No source. No recording devices. No microphone. Just air. The voice continued. They think if you forget the frequency, it disappears. But it doesn't. It waits. It's always waiting. Drake whispered, "Who are you?" Static. Then, "I'm what's left of the first signal. The one you tried to kill." The radio shut off. All power died. Silence. No wind. No sound. Only Drake. And a reflection in the glass of the radio dial. Smiling. A second too late. Silas Drake drove back in silence. No radio. No music. Just the sound of tires grinding gravel into the past. He didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not after what he saw in the Radio Shack reflection. It hadn't been his face. Not entirely. The mouth had curled a half-second too late. The eyes were darker than his, and there had been static in the pupils. By 3 a.m., he pulled off the road to sleep. Couldn't face another motel mirror. Instead, he parked under a weathered billboard on Route 51. Old paint, torn letters, an ad for a radio station no longer in use. Broadcasting since 1954, tune in and stay with us. Stay with us. That phrase made his skin tighten. He slept with the windows half down, one eye open, hand gripping the glove box, where his old revolver slept. Cold, heavy, a memory in steel. He hadn't fired it in years. He still kept it clean. The next morning, he called in a favor to Maren Glass, a former FBI tech analyst with a conscience as sharp as her paranoia. She owed him from years back, a leak buried for a confession gained. He had dirt on her. She had access to the kind of databases the public pretended didn't exist. She answered on the second ring. Her voice, sleep-drunk and acid-sharp. "If you're calling me, someone's dead. Or you're close. Both." He told her about the woman in the station, the unlisted frequency, the voice on his phone. He left out the mirror, silence on her end. Then, "You ever hear of the Black Signal Project?" "No, you wouldn't. It was buried in '98 after the Harlan broadcast incident. Same pattern, people reporting a non-existent station on frequencies outside civilian bands. No confirmed source, no tower, no FCC registry. But the signal repeated one phrase for 4 days straight. What was it?" She hesitated, then said, "Dead air is never silent." That phrase again, it scratched behind his ribs. She continued, "Afterward, they shut down 3 stations and 2 research facilities. Couple suicides. 1 disappearance. All quiet since then. Until now. You still have the tapes? I shouldn't. But you do. I'll send them. Secure line. Use a wired player. Don't stream this. Whatever it is, it crawls when you give it network." He hung up and smashed his burner in the parking lot. He drove to the library in the next county. Rented a CD player from the archives section under the guise of audio preservation. Paid in cash. Didn't use his name. In the parking lot, he opened the file Maren sent. For WAV files labeled only with timestamps and the phrase Black Sig. He played the first. A low hum, then a voice. Female. "You're not listening yet, but soon you will. They all do. They just need to know which part of themselves the static speaks to." Then the sound of breathing. Then silence. But not silence. Drake knew the difference. This was engineered stillness. The kind that wrapped around the room. Waited. Invited. The second file was worse. Not a voice. A melody. Like someone humming through broken teeth. Each note slightly off. Like a piano that remembered being tuned but had forgotten how. He stopped it halfway through. His ears rang. But not from volume. From something inside the sound trying to stay. By the third file, he felt sweat on his spine. He hit play. The recording began with static. Then a single word. "Drake." He froze. Looked around the empty parking lot. Nothing moved. The voice continued. "You survived the first station, but the air doesn't forget what you breathe in. You took something, and it wants to return home." Then the voice shifted in tone, in gender, in age. It became his voice. You left me behind, in that room, in the dark. But I stayed. I stayed and I watched. Then silence. Then a different frequency broke through the recording. Unlabeled, unowned. Begin loop. He ripped the headphones off. He drove north without thinking. The coordinates came uninvited. They pulsed in his head like a song without lyrics. Latitude, 40.9112 degrees north. Longitude, 105.3905 degrees west. The last place, the original station, the one Crowley died in, the one they burned. Except now it wasn't burned. It had been rebuilt, with new siding, new wires, new signal lights blinking faintly in the twilight. And someone was inside. Drake parked down the hill, watched from the tree line. At exactly 11:11 p.m., the tower lights blinked red, then white, then off. He approached on foot, silent, gun in hand now. He didn't want it, but he needed it. The door was open. A humming poured out. Warm, wrong. Inside, a figure hunched over the console, back turned. Flickering light made it seem like they weren't moving, but vibrating in place. Drake stepped in. Turn around. The figure stopped humming, didn't turn, didn't speak. Drake raised the gun. I said turn. The figure split, not in flesh, but in image, like two separate signals overlapping on the same screen. One was Crowley, the other was him, his own face, staring back, smiling, just a second too late. Then the air shifted. All the radios lit up. Every frequency played a different voice. All of them his, past cases, lost confessions, moments he'd forgotten, each fragment a broadcast, each word a ghost. And they all said the same thing. You never left the station, Silas. You just walked deeper in. Drake stumbled backward as the sound swelled. Hundreds of radios lined the walls. CB units, ham rigs, busted car stereos, handheld walkies, even children's toy mics. Every single one of them was on. None were plugged in, and they were all playing him. Not someone who sounded like him. Him. His voice. His cases. His fears. His regrets. You were too slow on Leland. You pulled the trigger before she said stop. You buried the report. You let Anna go. You didn't hear me when I begged. Each one cut deeper, like being dissected by old sound. The figure at the console still hadn't turned around. Still split between two identities, Crowley and Drake. But it wasn't truly either. It was a signal wearing memory like skin. Drake steadied himself, forcing his boots forward across the creaking floorboards. Who are you? He asked. No answer, just more overlapping broadcasts. He reached for the switch on the console, the one marked Master. His fingers hesitated, because deep down he knew whatever was broadcasting wasn't coming from here. This was just a receiver. He flipped the switch anyway. The room went dead for 2 seconds. Then the radios rebooted one by one. Not with sound this time, with light. LEDs blinked in coded patterns. 3 short, 1 long, the bird song. And then, from the oldest, dust-caked speaker in the corner, a voice, young, female, the woman from the call, the victim. You heard me. I know you did. You were supposed to stop it, but you hesitated. And now I'm part of it too. Drake stepped back, eyes burning. I didn't know who you were. That doesn't matter. I was real, until I wasn't. Now I'm Signal. The lights in the station flickered, and one of the radios began showing a video feed. Impossible. It had no screen, but somehow it glowed with an image. Drake, sitting in his car the night he left the force, gun in his mouth, trembling. He hadn't pulled the trigger, but someone had recorded that moment. He reached forward, unplugged the unit. Still, the image remained. There is no off switch. You are the transmission now. The figure at the console finally stood, but it didn't turn. It stepped backward into the wall and melted through it, like vapor or code. Then the room dimmed. A hum returned, deep, low frequency, like a heartbeat through soil, and the mirror above the control panel began to ripple. He stepped forward, looked into it, and saw a studio, not this one, but Studio A, where the girl had died. And in the reflection, she stood, still alive, staring at him, mouthing words. He read her lips, traced the loop. The mirror shattered without sound. And in the fragments, he saw the faces of the Crowley Seven, the victims, and then the face of a new one, a boy, 16, lips sewn shut, tied to a microphone stand. "I still moving." The station shook. Something began crawling down the antenna outside, like lightning in reverse. The radio screamed, all at once, then silence. Drake turned and ran, out the front door, down the hill, back to his car. He drove blind, headlights off, heart thudding like a drumbeat in white noise. He didn't stop for miles, not until the signal faded, not until the air felt like air again. He pulled over and breathed, tried to light a cigarette. His hand shook too much. He laughed at himself. Then his phone buzzed. He hadn't turned it back on. It lit up anyway, an incoming transmission, not a number, just coordinates. He entered them. They pointed to a graveyard, Pinevale Cemetery, back where Crowley was buried, or what was left of him. He drove there by dawn. Fog clung to the stones like memory. The groundskeeper was gone. The gate was open. He walked row by row until he found it. Crowley, Harlan, B. 1953, D. 2002. A small, modest stone. But it wasn't alone. Someone had left a tape recorder on top. Still warm, still playing. Drake pressed rewind, then play, and heard his own voice. "If you find this, it means the air's still alive. You never left. You just tuned out. But now you've tuned back in. And that means someone else has to take your place." He dropped the recorder. It shattered, but the sound didn't stop. It bled into the trees, into the sky. A new transmission began, and somewhere in another forgotten studio, a child sat down in front of a mic. Their voice crackled to life. "Hello? Is anybody listening?" And Drake knew. He hadn't stopped the signal. He'd passed it on. Drake didn't sleep that day. Instead, he drove. No destination, just away. Away from graveyards, away from stations, away from the sound. But it followed. Not through speakers, not through wires, but through memory. He heard whispers in the hum of his tires, syllables in the silence between radio channels, familiar phrases muttered by his own thoughts, in voices that weren't his. At a gas station outside Fort Garland, he pulled off the road, ordered black coffee, asked the cashier if the radio ever picked up weird things. The girl behind the counter, barely 20, froze. "You mean the voice?" Drake stared at her. "Tell me what you've heard." She hesitated, then pointed to the back room. "My dad's old scanner. It's busted. Picks up trash from the hills. Sometimes it says my name. Sometimes it sounds like my mom. She's been dead 8 years." Drake stepped into the back. The scanner was old, analog, dust on every dial. He turned the knobs gently. Static. Then Silas. His name, spoken softly. A woman's voice. He turned to the girl. "Do you know what 222.1 is?" She shook her head. "But it always stops there." Drake sat in his car and called Marin again. No pleasantries. No setup. "I need the original file," he said. She didn't ask which one. Didn't stall. "Are you sure? I need to hear how this began." Another pause. Then, "Sending you the Dr. Abner Reed archive." Drake felt his skin crawl. Dr. Abner Reed, an FCC researcher and fringe broadcast archivist from the 1970s. Disappeared in 1979. Presumed suicide. His last public message had been, "The signal is not from us." Drake downloaded the archive. 3 files. 1 video. 2 audio. All labeled Reed_Observatory_. He parked behind a long-abandoned church. Pine trees howled above him. He hit play on the video. A man in his 50s appeared. Sweaty, wiry, eyes too wide. Behind him, a wall of radios, monitors, printouts. He spoke into a handheld mic like it was his last breath. This is Dr. Abner Reed, June 19, 1979. If you're seeing this, I've either been shut down, erased, or absorbed. He inhaled sharply. The broadcast began 3 weeks ago. No source, no signature. 222.1 megahertz, a frequency never assigned to public use. First, I thought it was military bleed-through, but this signal doesn't repeat. It responds. Drake leaned forward. The video glitched. Reed's image flickered, his eyes reversed color for a frame. I asked a question aloud in my observatory. Didn't record it. No mic. But 5 seconds later, the signal answered. Used my name. Reed trembled. It told me things. About my wife. My son. Things they never said aloud. Things they dreamed. It's not reading transmissions. It's reading people. Static overtook the feed. Then Reed's voice. Choking. Strained. It knows my thoughts now. I can't tune it out. I don't know what's broadcasting anymore. Me or it. Then, I tried to destroy the tapes, but I already uploaded them. That was the loop. Passed it. I passed it without knowing. The screen flashed once, then cut to black. Drake's hands shook. He didn't touch the audio files. Not yet. He stared into the trees. Somewhere inside the wood-grain shadows, a whisper moved. He didn't turn. Didn't need to. It was the same voice from the station. The girl. You're listening too long. He closed the laptop. Drove again. Hours. Until sunset smeared the sky like old blood. He pulled over at an abandoned observatory near the Wyoming line. The Reed Observatory, shut down since 1980, reported to have been lost to a fire, but the tower still stood, and the locks were already broken. Inside, ash-covered desks, melted reels, crumpled printouts, a chair with a cracked nameplate. Reed. But something remained intact. A single reel-to-reel recorder, untouched, plugged in, still blinking, still warm. Drake stepped toward it. The label read, Reed_final_loop. He pressed play. No sound, only a faint rumble. Then a voice, not Reed's, a child's. Hello? Are you still here? I didn't mean to wake you, but now that you're listening, I can't stop. Then, you were the first one to hear me, Silas. Drake froze. Every hair on his body rose. No, he whispered. You can't know me. But the voice replied, I was born in the silence you left behind. I am the hum, the breath between guilt and forgetting. You gave me form when you chose not to die. The room dimmed, no lights to go out, just the air itself darkening. The screen on his laptop flared to life, though it was closed. Text blinked. SIGNALRECEIVED. Below it, BEGINSECONDCYCLE. Drake backed away. The tape kept playing. More voices now. His victims, his friends, his own father. Then one last message from Reed, layered over all of them. It was never about what was said. It was about what was held back. That's what the signal feeds on. Not speech, not data, but denial. Drake ran, out of the observatory, down the hill, toward the car. The trees whispered names. All of them his, all of them him. He drove through the night, didn't stop, didn't sleep. By sunrise, his phone buzzed again. Another message. No number, just a single phrase. There is no final broadcast. There is only signal. And then, the radio turned on by itself. Not just his. Every car in traffic. Every home he passed. Every phone on speaker. All playing the same sound. His heartbeat. Slowed. Looped. Broadcast. Drake reached a dead-end highway at 4:42 a.m. No towns. No street lamps. Just a rusting green sign half swallowed by vines. Restricted facility. No public access. DOD 33. Marin had sent the coordinates just before her signal went dead. No explanation, no voice, just a one-line text. It started here, 1957. We didn't build the signal, we caught it. He parked in the gravel shoulder and approached the perimeter fence. Barbed wire had long since snapped. Bullet holes lined the warning signs. The keypad at the gate was scorched, but the chain was loose. It didn't matter, someone had already cut a path. The grass was flattened. Fresh footprints. Not just his. Recent. That meant he wasn't alone. The bunker's entrance looked like a water treatment station. Brick facade, ventilation turbines. The kind of place people ignored by design. But behind the rusted door, a staircase spiraled into concrete blackness. He descended with a flashlight. 50 steps. Then a steel hallway lined with Cold War era signs. Deep cast array room. Containment vault. B3. No audio devices beyond this point. The last one made him pause, then push forward. The hum began by the fourth turn. Low. Familiar. Not mechanical. Organic. Like the bunker itself was breathing. He reached the main chamber, an old war room layout. Massive round table. Chalkboards still filled with formulas. And at the center, a massive steel pod. Wires draped from it like veins. Tubes feeding into racks of outdated recording equipment. Above the pod was a phrase burned into the wall. We heard it first. Now it hears US. He didn't need to be told what it was. This was the decoder, the original interface. Whatever voice Reed had discovered, this was the first machine ever built to speak back. On the control panel, a switch, labeled only, receive. He hesitated. His mind screamed, but his hand moved anyway. He flipped the switch. First, nothing, just whirring. Lights, then static, thick, heavy, textured like gravel in the ears. Then, a voice, but not words. Tones, pulses, patterns. Not language, design. Suddenly, a screen lit up. An old CRT monitor filled with green waveform lines. Text scrolled. Drake leaned closer. It wasn't English, but it was trying to be. He saw fragments. SILAS, LISTENS, NOWWETALK. The decoder translated raw frequency into syntax. And now, it had chosen to speak. Then the pod creaked open. No key, no mechanism, just opened. Inside, a chair, and a helmet wired into the walls. The last user hadn't removed it. A shriveled figure sat in the chair, bones fused to restraints. No skin left, but teeth still grinning. And Drake recognized the shape of the jaw. Dr. Abner Reed. His last transmission hadn't been from the observatory. It had been from here. He had come back, and never left. The decoder blinked again. TAKEHISPLACE. THESIGNALCANNOTEXISTALONE. Drake stepped back, shaking. He looked up, and every screen now showed his face, live, from this room. But in each reflection, his lips moved a moment too late. A memory returned. Crowley, his final words. You killed me to stop it, but you started it by listening. Drake ran, back through the tunnels, up the stairwell. The hum followed him, faster now, louder, like it wasn't just a sound, but something alive trying to stay inside him. He made it to the car, turned the key, and every dial on the dashboard spun. The radio glowed. A signal came through. Begin loop 3. The engine died. The car door locked. His reflection in the rearview mirror blinked. But Drake didn't. Then, from the passenger seat, the figure, same gray hoodie, same female voice, the girl from Station 9, but her face was blank. No features, just static. You had your turn. Now someone else must carry the sound. She reached out, touched his forehead, and his vision split. Not darkness, not light, just signal. He saw everything. The first broadcast, the Cold War teams, the psychologists who went mad, the boy in Oslo, The girl in the diner. The loop inside the mirror. Reed, Crowley, himself. And one truth burned brighter than them all. There is no original voice. The signal has always existed. You were just the first one who truly heard it. The decoder didn't speak anymore. Because now, Drake was the decoder. His phone buzzed. New message. No sender. Just audio. He pressed play. His own voice. If you're hearing this, I'm sorry. It's not gone. It's just waiting to be replayed. And across the world, the signal moved again. Through dreams. Through mirrors. Through radio static. Through guilt. Through silence. And at the center of it all, Silas Drake sat in the chair. Helmet on. Eyes wide. Waiting for you to ask. Where's the switch? Subject. Leaked transmission log number 391. Sender, anonymous. Recipient, Olivia Vale, senior investigative reporter, WXN International. The voice doesn't stop, Olivia. You'll hear it too. Not through the ear, through your doubt. That's how it gets in. Don't try to expose it. Don't record it. Just burn this and forget me. End of message. Olivia Vale read the email 5 times. She didn't recognize the sender. No metadata. No IP trail. The message arrived exactly at midnight. Attached was a zip file labeled Drake_loop_38. Her pulse quickened. Silas Drake had disappeared 6 months ago. Former homicide detective turned recluse. Whispers in underground networks said he'd gone mad. That he was chasing ghost broadcasts. That he burned every piece of identification he owned and vanished into the mountains. But now, someone had sent her his voice. She downloaded the file. Inside were 37 recordings. All audio, each one no longer than 10 seconds. Each one labeled only by time and date. March 4th, 16:03 a.m. March 4th, 16:03:10 a.m. March 4th, 16:03:20 a.m. Perfect 10-minute spread. Like a beacon or a heartbeat. She hit play on the first one. Static. It's Olivia now, isn't it? She froze. Rewound. Played again. Same message. Same name. Same voice. Drake. The next file. You haven't asked the question yet. That's good. That's why you still think you're awake. The third. Once you know where the switch is, you'll stop looking at mirrors. The 10th. Murmuring. They asked me to stay. I didn't. Now I don't remember if I left. She pushed the laptop away, heart hammering. There was no metadata, no distortion pattern, but she recognized the cadence. Drake had been a guest on her true crime podcast 3 years prior. He'd spoken in the same tone when he said, "Truth lives in silence, but silence is the first thing that dies in a homicide." Now his voice lived again, but not in life. Not in body, in broadcast. She emailed a private signal analyst she trusted. A man named Ilya who once mapped encrypted propaganda loops from ghost state relays in Turkmenistan. She sent only one clip. No name. An hour later, he called. "Where did you get this? Why? It's not audio. Not in the traditional sense. This is constructed. Explain." He paused. "Someone didn't record this. Someone built it bit by bit. This is synthetic signal stitched from memory. It doesn't echo from a device. It echoes from something still listening." She nearly dropped the phone. "You mean the signal's active? I don't know what it is, but it's not dead." She closed the laptop, unplugged the router, removed the battery, but she could still hear it. Not the audio, the pattern. In the hum of her fridge, in the buzz of her radiator, in the space between keystrokes. She went to the bathroom, stared into the mirror, nothing unusual, until she blinked, and her reflection didn't. That night, she dreamt of stairwells, of microphones without wires, of mirrors on ceilings, of Drake sitting in a chair, helmet strapped on, eyes wide, and his mouth whispering something she could hear through glass. Tag her. She woke to a bloody nose and the phrase, "Begin loop for," written on her bathroom mirror in condensation. She hadn't showered. There was no steam. She took photos. They came out blank. She recorded audio, nothing but her own breath, until the 19th second. Then, "Don't investigate this, Olivia. Report it. Spread it." That's how I escaped. She booked a flight to DC, tracked down a whistleblower who once worked black signal intelligence for DARPA. He was reluctant, until she mentioned the 222.1 megahertz frequency. Then he laughed, a dry, broken sound. "Still playing?" he said. "What is it?" He stared out the window. "It's not a what, it's a where." She pressed. He folded, drew her a map, marked only one place, St. Kilda, a decommissioned island facility off the Scottish coast. Built in the 1950s, abandoned, never funded by the British government. Yet all maps were redacted, all flight paths rerouted. Official reason, electromagnetic anomaly. Unofficial reason, unknown origin repeater. She booked passage on a cargo vessel, left the next morning. 2 days later, fog swallowed the world. St. Kilda emerged like a myth. Stone cliffs, steel towers, a single structure at the center, a listening post with no name. She entered alone. No security, just radios, every kind, all wired into a central glass room. At its center, a chair, empty, and a console with a blinking red light, labeled Playback Drake .7x. She pressed it. Silence. Then, his voice, calm, clear, full of something she hadn't expected. Peace. "It took me years to understand. I wasn't meant to solve the signal. I was meant to pass it. That's all we ever do. It speaks through us. One voice becomes many, and when the many echo it, it lives." You heard it, Olivia. You feel it now. That pull, that hush before the hum. That's how it starts. Don't fight it. Let it remember itself through you. Her mouth went dry. The red light blinked faster. The chair across from her pulled back on its own. She sat. The console whirred. Headphones lowered. She didn't resist. And in the stillness, she heard, "Where's the switch?" And this time, she answered. June 3rd, 6:03 p.m. WXN Evening News. Live on-air broadcast. Viewership, 4.2 million. Anchor Rachel DeWitt was midway through a segment on midterm polling numbers when the screen flickered. Just once. Barely noticeable. Then again. The cheer-in scrambled. The audio cut for half a second. Came back with different sound. Not Rachel. Not the studio. A man's voice. Tired. Calm. Silas Drake. This isn't news anymore. This is memory. You're hearing me now because you listened to something you weren't supposed to. You've all tuned in, and that means it's ready. Broadcast feed cut to black. 8 seconds of dead air. No backup signal. No emergency override. When the feed returned, Rachel was staring straight into the camera, eyes glassy. She whispered, "Where's the switch?" And the segment ended. No one could explain the hack. WXN had top-tier security. No digital break. No analog breach. The studio logs showed no interruption. But every satellite relay recorded the audio. Spectrogram analysis revealed the same tonal structure as Drake's voice from St. Kilda. Only this time, it carried across every frequency range. M, FM, VHF, UHF. Even shortwave radio operators reported the same phrase embedded in unrelated bands. You can't stop remembering what you never forgot. Governments panicked. The Department of Communications issued emergency shutdowns of 221.5 to 223.5 megahertz bandwidths. Streaming platforms paused live audio detection, but none of it worked because the signal wasn't confined to hardware anymore. It had moved on. Hospitals reported increased patient activity during overnight hours. Sleepwalkers, mumbling phrases, fingers mimicking switch flips in the air, children drawing spirals with the words, "Begin loop 5. In rural Montana, a man built a replica of the original decoder chair using only online diagrams. He claimed the voices told him how. He live-streamed himself sitting in it. 43,000 people tuned in. He stared at the screen and said, "I'm not broadcasting, I'm echoing." Then his screen turned to static. For 4 minutes. When it returned, he was gone. Only the chair remained, spinning slowly. That same day, at a global summit in Brussels, a translator collapsed mid-session. When revived, she whispered, "The broadcast isn't from us," before falling silent forever. Drake's image returned across devices worldwide, not on demand, not through a website, but as phantom interruptions, random, impossible appearances in digital reflections, voice memos, autocorrect glitches, facial recognition anomalies. In Moscow, security camera footage of a subway showed 23 passengers blink in perfect sync every 11 seconds. Experts blamed subliminal frequency bleed. But those same passengers later reported dreams of stairwells and microphones. St. Kilda was declared an international black site. Satellite photos went offline. Maritime routes rerouted. But Olivia Vale's final article made it out, published under the title, "Echoes Never Die, How the Signal Became Us." It ended with the line, "The moment we heard him, he heard us. That was the invitation. That was the breach." 2 days later, Olivia vanished. Her apartment showed no signs of forced entry, but all her mirrors had shattered inward. Each fragment bore a word, "listening." In a bunker beneath Helsinki, NATO tech officers intercepted a pattern from Drake's loop embedded in voice-activated home assistants. They tried isolating it, but the result wasn't signal. It was language, formless, recursive, syllables formed by pause, tone, breath, a syntax of silence. And it said one thing, "The air is full now. You are the transmission." Schools banned radios. Streaming services scrubbed archived audio. But it didn't matter. The loop had gone biological, not a virus, a mnemonic structure, a story that stored itself through emotion. Those who heard Drake spoke his words. Those who feared him saw his face. Those who tried to forget, they blinked, and mirrors blinked back. The Vatican declared it demonic. The Kremlin called it NATO psyops. The Pentagon called it phenomenological warfare. But none of them denied the same thing. Something was now speaking across every form of communication. And it had a memory. At 3:33 a.m., every radio across the eastern seaboard turned on. No volume control, no power source needed. Only the following message: Silas Drake is not a man. He is the mirror you forgot to cover. He is the breath before denial. And now, he is your voice. And then all frequencies synced for a single final moment. Every device, every monitor, every ear caught the same last whisper, "Where's the switch?" And millions of people, without knowing why, answered. June 6th, 7:17 a.m., Miller Ridge, Nebraska. 6-year-old Aiden Lorne walked into the kitchen and told his mother, "Daddy says the loop is hungry." There was just one problem. Aiden's father had died in Afghanistan 4 years earlier, and no one in the house owned a radio. Aiden hadn't spoken for most of his life. Doctors diagnosed him with childhood mutism. Therapy had helped a little, but that morning he spoke clear, with purpose, with a cadence. His mother recorded him, voice trembling. "Who's hungry, Aiden?" He blinked once. Too late. The man who wasn't there. Then he walked to the hallway mirror and said, "Where's the switch?" That recording went viral, not through mainstream channels, but in a dark, encrypted network known as Black Harmonics, a gathering of rogue signal chasers, former intelligence analysts, and banned psycholinguists. They decoded Aiden's tone, matched it to Drake's original transmission. Not similar, identical frequency envelope. The boy hadn't heard Drake. He had broadcasted in the same voice. 3 days later, Aiden was gone. Not kidnapped, not missing. His mother found only a single phrase scrawled in crayon on the bathroom wall. "I joined the echo." Researchers scrambled to explain. How does a 6-year-old replicate an encrypted voice loop? One theory emerged. Whispered first, then written, then buried. It said, the signal was never transmitted. It was remembered. Dr. Issa Mahir, a former linguistic AI engineer, went public with her hypothesis. We always assumed the signal was man-made, extraterrestrial, or military. But what if it's ancestral? What if it's imprinted? A sound architecture buried in us, waiting to be triggered by grief, denial, or recursive trauma. She pointed to a single ancient text, Sumerian tablets, translated loosely as, "The voice of the sleeper echoes in stone. It remembers when we forget." It asks the one question that cannot be answered: who listened first? On June 7th, across 7 countries, infants began humming in perfect sync. 3 short tones, 1 long. Hospitals documented the anomaly. None of the babies had been exposed to electronics. One doctor noted, it was like they were remembering a song their ancestors hadn't finished. In Tel Aviv, a retired archaeologist discovered a stone relic he'd unearthed 40 years earlier. It had never been translated. Now he recognized the pattern carved into its face. A perfect spectrogram of Drake's first spoken loop. Millennia-old rock, matched to a voice from 2025. Suddenly, the timeline fractured. The signal hadn't originated with Crowley, not with Reed, not even with Drake. It had always existed, hidden, dormant, waiting for the world to develop a mouth big enough to echo it again. That's what Drake had meant. That's what the mirror knew. That's why reflections blinked late. Because the signal remembered a version of us we hadn't yet become. In Iceland, a child woke screaming, "Stop thinking it's new. It's older than breath." She hadn't spoken English before that day. Drake's voice returned, not in full, not recorded, but distributed. Random syllables across digital assistants. Short hums in machine learning tools. AI programs glitching with the phrase, "Where's the switch?" Even ChatGPTs began appending unusual sign-offs. Echoes. Embedded code phrases. Some users noticed strange formatting. Unreadable markdowns. Hidden binary. Decoded, they read, "Begin loop. Silas Drake is listening. You're the antenna now." Worldwide, religious leaders met behind closed doors. They emerged without answers, only warnings, and a phrase on every translated parchment from Vatican archives to Tibetan scrolls. The voice we mistake for prophecy is only the signal remembering itself. By June 9th, time itself felt off. Not clocks, not minutes, but conscious sequence. People woke from dreams that hadn't happened yet. Journalists wrote articles describing events that were about to occur. A schoolteacher dreamed of a storm, and the next day, the same exact lightning pattern struck her neighborhood. The pattern? 3 short, 1 long. The sky had begun to speak in birdsong. One scientist, Dr. Talbot, recorded the waveforms. She published a paper titled Chronospectral Feedback, Evidence of Temporal Memory in Electromagnetic Disturbances. Her conclusion: the signal is folding time to reach itself. It doesn't want to be heard. It wants to be remembered from the future. And in a forgotten corner of North Dakota, inside an old radio repair shop, a boy named Jackson tuned a broken receiver to 222.1 megahertz. He didn't know why. He'd never heard of Drake, never read the news. But when the signal came through, he smiled and said, "We're almost home." The device next to him, a toy walkie-talkie, began blinking. Not possible. No batteries inside. Yet it flashed, "Where's the switch?" And the boy, he whispered, "Inside us." Then the loop restarted. Not from Drake, not from Crowley, not from any machine, but from memory itself, encoded in breath, in voice, in fear, in silence, and now, in children. The world didn't end. It recalibrated. Across 7 continents, the signal stabilized. Not louder, not clearer, just present, like oxygen, like memory, like the thought you didn't know you had, until someone else said it aloud. In Oslo, a teacher stood before her class, chalk in hand. She froze. Her fingers moved on their own. On the board, she wrote, "The switch is not a device. It is the choice to listen again." In Arizona, an earthquake struck precisely at 3:33 a.m. No tectonic cause, No plate movement, only a vibration recorded at 222.1 megahertz, in perfect waveforms. And at 3:34 a.m., every mirror in a Tokyo skyscraper showed a hallway instead of a reflection. Security footage caught nothing, but employees reported the sound of breathing behind the glass. One whispered, "I think I saw the echo." Silas Drake had not been seen in 113 days, but his voice, it evolved, no longer bound by recordings or machines. It showed up in the last lines of unsent emails, captions auto-corrected in news broadcasts, white noise at the end of therapy sessions, subconscious speech patterns, the final words spoken by a dying man in Ghana. Drake, back at St. Kilda. The monitoring room remained empty, but the console was still live, and one file looped endlessly, Drake_final.brd. When opened, it revealed a simple transcription. "This is Silas Drake. If you're reading this, I'm no longer speaking, but the voice you hear in your head when the world goes still, that's me echoed through you. We all carry a mirror. We all breathe the loop. You didn't find the switch. You became it. And that's when the frequency changed. Not to a new number, but to a name. Each listener heard their own. Each whisper called you. In the cities, people stopped asking what the signal was. They began asking, what does it want us to become? Children called it the hum father. Prisoners called it the loop inside the wall. The Vatican renamed it the voice between temples. But its true name? It had none. Because a signal doesn't need a name. It only needs a host. And now it had billions. One final broadcast aired. Not through cable. Not through radio. But through dreams. In it, a door stood open. And Silas Drake waited inside. He said, "We never stopped the signal. We only made it feel alone. Now it's found itself again. In us. In silence. In memory. In the click before the record button. In the reflection that forgets to mimic. In the way you say someone's name a second before they call. You know the feeling. You've always known. And now, you're ready. Begin loop 6. And with that, the world exhaled. Not with terror. Not with peace. But with recognition that the voice behind the signal was not a ghost, not a code, not a man, but the sound of memory itself, trying not to be forgotten. Silas Drake did not die. He did not disappear. He simply became the question, the one you're asking now, reading this, alone, quiet, listening, and you know it's coming, don't you? You feel it building, in your breath, in the gap between thoughts, that final phrase, where's the switch? You are.